The folder on the desk was thin, blue, innocent-looking, but Alina knew better. In that folder was the end of her life. She stood in the center of the office. Her hands were clasped in front of her cheap waitress uniform. Her knuckles were white. The man sitting behind the desk didn't look up. He was signing papers. Scratch, scratch, flip. He had the kind of face you see on magazine covers. Sharp jaw, ice blue eyes, the kind of handsome that feels dangerous. Julian Thorne, billionaire, real estate mogul, the man who owned half of Manhattan, and the man who held her parents' lives in his hand. "Sit," he said. He didn't ask, he commanded. Alina sat. The leather chair was worth more than her father made in a year. "You know why you're here?" Julian said. He finally looked up. His eyes were empty. "My father," Alina whispered. He made a mistake with the visa renewal. He didn't know." "Ignorance isn't a legal defense, Alina." He said her name like it was a business transaction. "Please," she said. "He's lived here for 30 years. He pays taxes. He has a heart condition. If you deport him, if you let them take him, he will die." Julian closed the file. He leaned back. He studied her, like she was a building he was thinking about buying or demolishing. "I can stop the deportation," he said. Alina felt a spark of hope. "You can. I have the best immigration lawyers in the country on retainer. A single phone call from me and the file disappears. Your parents get their green cards, permanent status, safety." "Thank you," Alina breathed. She started to stand up. "Thank you, Mr. Thorne. I'll pay you back. I'll work extra shifts. I'll—" "Sit down," he said. The voice was like a whip crack. Alina sank back into the chair. "I don't want your money, Alina. You make $12 an hour. It would take you 3 lifetimes to pay my hourly rate." He stood up and walked to the window. Below them, New York City looked like a toy set. "I need something else." "Anything," Alina said. She meant it. For her father, she would do anything. Julian turned around. "My grandfather died last week. The trust fund he left is substantial, but there is a clause." He paused. "I have to be married, and I have to stay married for 1 year. If I'm single on my 35th birthday next month, I lose control of the company." Alina stared at him. She started to understand, and the understanding made her stomach turn. "I want a wife," Julian said. "A fake wife. Someone who will sign the papers, live in my house, attend the galas, and smile for the cameras for 1 year." He walked back to the desk. He slid the blue folder toward her. "You give me a year of your life, I give your parents their freedom." Alina looked at the folder, then she looked at him. "And if I say no," Julian picked up his phone, "then I call ICE myself, and I tell them exactly where to find your father." He held the phone up. His thumb hovered over the call button. "Tick-tock, Alina." She looked at his face. There was no mercy there, no kindness, just cold, hard leverage. She reached for the pen. Her hand shook as she signed her name. She hated him. In that moment, she hated him more than she had ever hated anyone in her life. But she had no idea that the man standing in front of her was lying about everything. The wedding was quiet. City Hall, no guests, no flowers, just a judge who looked bored and a witness Julian had paid $50 to stand there. Alina wore a white dress she bought at a thrift store. It didn't fit right in the shoulders. Julian wore a suit that cost $5,000. When the judge said, "You may kiss the bride," Julian hesitated, just for a second. Then he leaned in. His lips were warm. It was a shock. Alina expected him to be cold everywhere. But for a brief moment, as his hand touched her waist, she felt a current run through her. Then he pulled away. "Done," he said to his lawyer. "File the papers." He didn't look at Alina. He walked out to the waiting black car. She followed him. Like a shadow, the ride to the penthouse was silent. Alina looked out the window. She watched the city blur by. She thought about her parents. They were safe. Julian had kept his word. The lawyers had called this morning. Her father's status was pending adjustment. He wasn't going anywhere, but she was. She was going to prison. A prison with marble floors and a view of Central Park, but a prison all the same. They arrived at the penthouse. It was massive, cold, modern. Everything was gray or white. No pictures on the walls, no clutter, no life. "The guest room is down the hall," Julian said. He threw his keys on the table. "Second door on the left. That is your space. The rest of the house is mine. Do not disturb me when I am in my office." "What about meals?" Alina asked. "The cook comes at 6. Eat what you want." He started to walk away. "Julian," she said. He stopped. He didn't turn around. "Why me?" He stood there for a long time. "Because," he said quietly, "you needed something. People who need something are easy to control." He went into his office and shut the door. The lock clicked. Alina stood alone in the foyer. She felt small. She felt used. But as the weeks went by, she started to notice things. Small things. Julian didn't sleep. She would hear him pacing at 3 in the morning. She would find coffee cups untouched in the kitchen. And he had nightmares. One night, a month into their marriage, she was getting water from the kitchen. She heard a shout. It came from his bedroom. She shouldn't go in. He had rules. But the shout came again. It was a sound of pure panic. Alina opened the door. Julian was thrashing in the sheets. Sweat soaked his shirt. No, he moaned. Don't, please. Alina ran to the bed. Julian, she whispered. She touched his shoulder. He gasped awake. He sat up, his chest heaving. He looked at her. His eyes were wide, wild. For a second, the mask was gone. The billionaire was gone. There was just a terrified boy in a dark room. Get out, he rasped. You were dreaming, Alina said softly. I said get out, he roared. Alina backed away. She closed the door, but she stayed in the hallway. She listened to his breathing slow down. She sat on the floor, her back against the wall. And she wondered what kind of monsters a man like Julian Thorne was fighting, because monsters don't usually hide under the beds of billionaires. They hide in their memories. The gala was 3 months later. It was the first time they had to appear in public as a couple. Alina wore a green dress Julian's stylist had picked out. She felt beautiful, and she felt like a fraud. The ballroom was filled with the richest people in New York. Diamonds glittered under the chandeliers. Champagne flowed like water. Julian held her arm. His grip was firm, protective. Just smile, he whispered in her ear. And don't talk unless someone asks you a direct question. I know the rules. Alina hissed back. They moved through the crowd. Julian introduced her. My wife, Alina. People looked at her with curiosity, some with judgment. The waitress, she heard a woman whisper. Can you believe it? Alina kept her head high. She squeezed Julian's arm. He looked down at her, and for the first time she saw something in his eyes that wasn't coldness, it was respect. Then a man approached them. He was older, heavy, with a face like a bulldog. Sterling Vance, Julian's biggest rival and a member of the board. Well, Vance boomed. The happy couple. He looked Alina up and down. It made her skin crawl. Charming, Vance said. Tell me, dear, how much did he pay you? The circle of people around them went quiet. Alina froze. Excuse me. Oh, come on, Vance laughed. We all know Julian needed a wife to keep the company. You needed, what, a green card, a check? He stepped closer. It's a shame, Vance said to Julian. You could have afforded better acting. Alina felt tears prick her eyes. She waited for Julian to walk away, to ignore it. That was his way, cold detachment. But Julian didn't walk away. He let go of Alina's arm. He stepped forward. He towered over Vance. Apologize, Julian said. His voice was low, but it carried across the silent room. It's a joke, Julian, Vance said nervously. Apologize to my wife, Julian repeated. Now, or what? Vance sneered. You'll sue me. No, Julian said. I'll buy you. He leaned in close. I'll buy your company. I'll buy your debt. I'll buy the building you live in and I'll evict you. And I will do it before breakfast tomorrow morning. Vance's face went pale. He looked at Julian. He saw that Julian wasn't bluffing. He turned to Alina. I apologize, Mrs. Thorne. Get out, Julian said. Vance scurried away. Julian turned back to Alina. His hand was shaking just a little. Are you okay? He asked. It wasn't a command. It was a question, a real one. I'm fine, Alina said. She looked at him. You defended me. You're my wife, Julian said. He adjusted his cufflink. It would look weak if I didn't. But Alina knew. It wasn't about looking weak. He had been angry for her. That night in the car ride home, he didn't pull his hand away when her leg brushed against his. They sat in the dark, the city lights flashing over their faces, and the silence wasn't empty anymore. It was full of things they were too afraid to say. But happiness in Julian's world was a trap. A week later, Alina came home to find the penthouse turned upside down. Files were scattered everywhere. Julian was in his office. He was packing a bag. What's happening? Alina asked. Julian looked up. He looked wrecked. His eyes were red. He hadn't shaved. The deal is over, he said. What? I'm terminating the contract. You're free to go. Alina stood in the doorway. But it hasn't been a year. You'll lose the company. I don't care about the company, Julian yelled. He threw a shirt into the bag. I want you out, Alina, now tonight. Why? Alina demanded. She walked into the room. After everything, we were getting along. It was a job, Julian shouted. It was never anything else. You were a waitress I hired to fool a board of directors, and I'm bored of the game. He walked over to her. He grabbed her shoulders. Pack your things, go back to Queens, go back to your life. And my parents? Alina asked. Her voice was trembling. Will you deport them? Julian laughed, a cruel, bitter sound. I don't care about your parents. I never did. Just go. He pushed her toward the door. Alina stared at him. She felt like she had been punched in the chest. She had started to believe, she had started to care, and he was exactly who he said he was, a monster. She ran to her room. She threw her clothes into her suitcase. She didn't take the jewelry. She didn't take the dresses. She took only what she came with. She walked to the elevator. Julian was standing in the hallway. His back was to her. I hate you, Alina said. Julian didn't turn around. Good, he whispered. The elevator doors closed. Alina went back to her parents' apartment. They were happy to see her. They thought she was visiting. She told them she and Julian had separated, that it just didn't work out. She cried for 3 days. On the 4th day, there was a knock on the door. It wasn't Julian. It was a man in a gray suit. Mrs. Thorne, he asked. "It's Alina," she said. "I'm not Mrs. Thorne anymore." "Legally, you are," the man said. "I'm Mr. Thorne's attorney. He instructed me to give you this." He handed her a thick envelope. "What is it? Divorce papers?" "No," the lawyer said. "It's a deed." Alina opened the envelope. It was the deed to the building her parents lived in and a check for $5 million. "I don't understand," Alina said. "Why?" The lawyer sighed. He took off his glasses. "Julian made me promise not to tell you, but he's not who you think he is." "He's a selfish billionaire," Alina said bitterly. "No," the lawyer said. "He's a man who ran out of time." "What do you mean?" "The deportation order," the lawyer said. "It wasn't just a mistake your father made, it was targeted." Alina froze. Targeted? Sterling Vance, the man at the party, he wanted Julian's company. He knew Julian needed a wife, and he knew Julian had a soft spot for underdogs. The lawyer looked at the floor. "Vance found you. He found your family. He engineered the deportation threat to force Julian into a corner. He thought Julian would panic and sell the company." Alina's head was spinning. "So Julian used me to save his company?" "No," the lawyer said. "Julian knew about the threat before you walked into his office. He didn't marry you to get the inheritance. He already had the inheritance. The marriage clause, he made that up." Alina dropped the envelope. "What?" "He married you because as the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you have immediate protection. It was the only way to stop Vance from deporting your parents instantly. He couldn't just pay them off. He had to marry you." Alina felt the room tilting. "He threatened me," she whispered. "He told me he would deport them." "He had to make you agree fast," the lawyer said. "If he asked you nicely, you would have asked questions. You would have hesitated. Vance gave him 24 hours. "So he played the villain," Alina said. Tears were streaming down her face. "He protected you," the lawyer said. "From the beginning. But why kick me out? Why now?" The lawyer looked uncomfortable. "Because Vance isn't done. He threatened to expose the marriage as fraudulent. He threatened to have you arrested for visa fraud. Julian realized that as long as you were with him, you were a target. So he let me go to keep me safe," Alina realized. "He loves you, Alina," the lawyer said softly. "That's why he let you go." Alina didn't wait. She didn't pack a bag. She ran to the subway. She ran through the streets of Manhattan. It was raining. Of course it was raining. She didn't care. She got to the penthouse building. The doorman tried to stop her. "Mrs. Thorne, you can't." "Get out of my way," she yelled. She used her key. She still had it. She rode the elevator up. The numbers ticked by agonizingly slow. The doors opened. The penthouse was dark. Boxes were everywhere. Julian was sitting on the floor in the living room. He was holding a picture of them from the gala. He looked up. He looked broken. "Alina," he whispered. "You shouldn't be here. It's not safe." Alina walked over to him. She was dripping wet. Her hair was a mess. "You liar," she said. Julian flinched. "I know," he said. "I'm sorry. The lawyer will handle the annulment. You're rich now. You're safe." "You lied about the clause," she said. "Yes, you lied about the threat." "Yes. Did you lie about this?" She leaned down and kissed him. It wasn't like the kiss at City Hall. This was desperate, real, salty with tears. Julian froze for a second, then he broke. He wrapped his arms around her waist. He pulled her down to the floor with him. He buried his face in her neck. "I tried," he choked out. "I tried so hard to let you go." "You're an idiot," Alina said, crying and laughing at the same time. "You smart, stupid billionaire." She pulled back to look at him. "You don't get to decide what's safe for me. I decide." "Vance will come for us," Julian said. "He'll destroy everything." "Let him try," Alina said. "My husband is Julian Thorne. He buys people like Vance for breakfast." Julian smiled. It was a real smile. It reached his eyes. "I suppose I do," he said. "They didn't just stay married for a year. They stayed married for 50. Sterling Vance did try to cause trouble, but he underestimated one thing. He underestimated a waitress from Queens who had nothing left to lose. Alina went to the press. She told them everything, not the fake story, the real one. She told them about the blackmail, the threats, and the man who sacrificed his own happiness to protect a family of strangers. The public loved it. Vance was ruined. His stock plummeted. He was forced off the board in disgrace. Julian kept his company, but he changed how he ran it. He built community centers. He funded legal aid for immigrants. He became the man Alina knew he could be, and every year on their anniversary, they didn't go to a fancy gala. They ordered takeout from the diner where Alina used to work. They sat on the floor of the penthouse, and they looked at the old blue folder, the one that started as a threat and ended as a promise. Because sometimes the coldest deals lead to the warmest lives. And sometimes the person you think is your enemy is actually the only one fighting for you. If this story warmed your heart, please hit that subscribe button. We have new stories every week about love, redemption, and the unexpected turns of life. See you in the next video.